Hello, everyone. Welcome to Popcast on the Rocks, where a podcast talks about pop culture things that interest us, and sometimes there's whiskey. This is episode 128, and we're welcoming back a guest, Tony. Tony, it's been a long time. How have you been?
It has been a while. I've been good. I was trying to remember the last time I was on the podcast, so I'm happy to be back.
Yep, it's
Was
been
that
a
Moon
minute.
Knight?
Hmm?
Oh,
Was it Moon Knight? Was it our discussion of Moon Knight?
Moon Knight. Yep, I was on a couple of
Okay.
Moon Knights.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Man, that
haven't had
seems
too many guests.
like
Yeah.
that seems like just a minute ago and also forever ago.
Hmm.
Like that's, in
The
Disney
the
time, it's like 14 shows ago. So, it feels like it should be a long time, but really it's like 3 months, 4 months.
right. You know what? I think I have that like cultural phenomenon where like 2020 has basically just extended itself, and like everything the
Yes.
past 3 years has just been one continuous year that I can't differentiate
Yes.
anymore.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Where
I
somebody
remember.
asks you when something happened and you're like, "Okay, I not only have to think about the month, but I really have to think about the year because I don't
Mm.
know."
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we'll catch up with you a little bit here in a moment. And we're going to talk later in the show, a spoiler in a spoilery fashion about Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the anime on Netflix. We consumed that quite a while ago and finally getting around to it. So hopefully you've seen that. Before that, I just have a topic of discussion or like an idea I was just going to bring it up on the anime show. And I thought, well, I just see what you guys' opinion of it is. And otherwise, we'll start like normal with drink holidays. Andrea, do you have
Yes.
lots of drink holidays?
We do. I mean, it's been a little bit since we've had the show. We were off for a little bit post Thanksgiving. So of course Thanksgiving was a holiday in there. I don't know if anybody does like special drinks really for Thanksgiving. My family is very much like during Christmas time, we all like there's one day when we get together and there's like special drink made for everybody to share, but we don't really do that at any other major holidays.
Okay. Yeah,
My grandma tried to make it a thing at Thanksgiving once, and like we just sort of passed on that.
how about you, Tony? Do you do family drink concoctions or?
Um, you know, not really. I would say, see, this isn't because Thanksgiving to me is kind of a not relaxing holiday. So like,
Hmm.
I don't really drink before dinner on Thanksgiving because I'm so afraid of screwing up the turkey.
Hmm.
So I'm
Okay,
like
so you're in charge of the
hardcore
turkey.
concentrating.
You have
I
like big
am.
jobs.
Hmm.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I make
Okay.
green bean casserole, which is like less of a job.
Sure. But it's loved.
It's the green color though. It's like the green
Yes,
and the rest of just what is essentially brown and white
brown. Yes,
everything.
yes. I do bring the color.
Cranberries.
Yes.
Okay,
Cranberries.
it's stop,
Right?
John, stop.
Come on now. Sweet potatoes. Orange.
That's an orange brown.
No,
Especially
Yeah.
if you get
that's
Yeah.
marshmallow
still.
on top and you like brown the marshmallows.
See,
Yep. That's
that's
true.
that's
Mhm.
just it's just the color spectrum. The same color, just
Yeah.
different, spectrums of it.
You're in the same place on the color wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. There's cohesion, Like if you're building a color palette, you could build a beautiful one out of Thanksgiving.
You
It's
could.
that traditional like turkey fanned kind of,
Yeah.
feathers and some of that.
Well, the
It's yeah.
color palette of autumn in general is like my favorite
Yeah,
Yes.
color palette,
right.
which is basically just Thanksgiving dinner for trees.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
I think we'll all look at our Thanksgiving tables next year. Just think, this is for trees.
Oh, look, it's
I'm
the
not sure.
Mississippi Valley on my table.
Hmm.
Spread before me, yes.
Mhm.
Spread before me.
All right.
uh well, with
Profound.
that, I hope we all had happy Thanksgiving days. Um Moving along into December, it is National Eggnog Month, switching fittingly for, the upcoming Christmas holidays. I tried eggnog like for the first time a couple years ago. It's fine. It
Okay.
was okay.
Plain
I
or
don't know if I
spiked?
didn't spiked.
Okay.
I mean, I tried it both ways, like
Right.
plain and spiked, and both
Mhm.
ways was just kind of like, yeah, this is all right,
Okay.
you know.
I'm a big proponent of eggnog. Also, you have to watch the episode of The Fairly Odd Parents where Timmy Turner's dad's like obsessed with eggnog, and he just
Okay.
like has this huge super soaker on his back, and he just douses everybody with eggnog. It's great.
Wow. That sounds less good. Yeah.
He's like, gotta have my nog.
No, it's like for like this season, it can be very, a big obsession of some people. And I don't know if maybe I just didn't have good nog or like, I need to try somebody's like homemade secret recipe or whatever. But I don't know. I
There
I
didn't get
is.
the
think
hype,
it's all
but
kind of similar. I mean,
No, man.
you know?
There's some nog out there that you like.
Wow.
You sip that nog, you're like, this is gross. This is not good nog. But when
Plain,
nog is
plain.
good,
But you
Hmm?
mean like not a spiked one, like not like someone messed it up with booze of some kind,
oh,
like
you
just plain
you
eggnog,
can
and then
really
it's
screw up. You can really screw up nog if you spike it incorrectly.
right. Hmm. Okay. All
yeah,
right.
I don't know. Maybe I'll have to give it another try. Obviously not this year, but
Mm-hmm.
in a following year,
Sure.
perhaps I shall try again.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of other holidays as we get into the first week of December. I find this one very fitting. On December 2nd, it was National Bartender Day. As a former bartender, what? Go me. And it's a perfect day to celebrate it because, as Chris reminded me, that was the day we got engaged 10 years ago,
um. Okay.
December 2nd. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I couldn't believe it's been 10 years. Like, he was like, "Oh, look at that." I was like, "Oh my god."
I've done in my life.
That's a double like that's a double digit number. Like, I don't know that I'm supposed to be measuring my life milestones like that. Like,
Yeah, it's um you reach a point where it takes you think the time where you weren't with your partner was like almost another life. It was so long ago. It
yeah,
becomes almost strange when you start saying like things that you did that your spouse wasn't there for, you know.
right,
It's like that was another life ago. So it's
right.
really yeah.
We're measuring in fractions. You've been in a third of my life. There are two
Yeah.
thirds of my life that did involve you.
Right. Yeah.
The fraction slowly,
And then it
Mhm.
slowly
shift.
starts moving into the other direction where it's like, oh
Right.
my god, it's like 3/4 of my life I've been with this person.
Mhm.
Right, exactly. Like, how is this possible?
I was gonna say something to you because I saw that, but I'm like, I'll wait to the anniversary. I'm gonna say, like congratulations on the engagement anniversary and on the wedding anniversary. It's like just wait. So
Yes.
yeah.
Well, it is here now.
Yeah.
And yeah, Chris Throwback posted our engagement video filmed by you.
That's why I
Um,
saw it. Someone shared a Facebook thing that I looked at and was like, oh, why is there a notification for me? And yeah.
yep, 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 an oldie but a goodie.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, moving along from December 2nd, December 3rd, it was very specific. It was National Rhubarb Vodka Day, which I have had. My dad has made some of his own homemade rhubarb vodka. I'm
Okay.
not a rhubarb fan, so I was not his target market. Um,
You don't like
Is,
but
rhubarb?
I
Oh,
mean,
no.
is there
it's
a target
fine.
market?
I mean, other people
Minnesotans,
who enjoy rhubarb,
Swedes,
yes.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'd
I
Yeah.
rather
like
have like
My
lutefisk
my
over
uh
rhubarb.
my
what?
uncle's a big rhubarb person and he loved it. Like, I can't do anything rhubarb, like cake, crumble, like nothing. I am not
Oh
a
no,
fan.
why? It's like the right, if you make it where it's all rhubarb and it's too bitter, too sour, then
Nope.
that's understandable. But it's the right balance when you put it in, like you say, a crumble or something. You have the sugar and fat, and then the
And
sour. Like it's,
I
you
could
know,
maybe do a crumble. I feel like I've been done dirty a lot by like rhubarb cake being
okay,
like the very wrong consistency.
sure,
I don't really love like surprises in my cake, like like fruit surprises because I often find the texture very weird and like clashy with the cake texture.
Hmm.
So I don't really enjoy that to begin with. And then when you either get it where it's like smush or it's like way too hard and it
I think
is
you've had bad
stringy
rhubarb
like
dessert.
celery.
I'm
I
gonna.
I mean
I,
probably,
my grandma always used
but
to
it's
make
been
rhubarb sauce, and so you take that and you would put that on ice cream. So vanilla ice cream, and you pour rhubarb
I could
sauce on
do
there,
that.
and then it's really good because it cools, and so you get that basically shell of fruit on your ice cream because it cools it and solidifies it and stuff. So
I could maybe roll with that. I just like I said, I don't like the specific texture, and then
Mm.
I don't when it's done extremely wrong, I don't really like the bitter stringy taste. So,
Tony, what are you shaking your head back there for?
I'm just listening to you guys talk. I'm like, nothing you are saying sounds appealing. Nothing. Everything is just gross. The plethora, the entire universe of sweets and pies and cakes, and you're trying to sit there and defend rhubarb.
Yeah,
No,
y-
it's a weed that somebody decided to try to melt and put on
well,
stuff and see what it tastes like.
everything is weeds. I mean, what is asparagus? That stuff grows faster than any weed I've ever known.
Yeah, and
It's
it makes your pee
absolutely
smell
just
funny.
nobody puts it in a dessert.
true.
That's
Well,
very
no.
fake fish. Yes. Would you like some of my asparagus ice cream pie, John?
The next time you guys are over, I'm making asparagus something and rhubarb something, and you're gonna like it.
Oh,
I'm gonna
God.
destroy your bathroom. Is what's gonna happen.
Not if I lock myself in there.
Yep. Too true.
Uh,
Too true.
Well, on to some better flavors of things, in my opinion. December 3rd is also Peppermint Latte Day, which, I feel like has the potential to someday replace like a PSL in all of our hearts.
Wow.
It already
There's gotta
has.
be
Wow.
like an equal wave for peppermint because I do not enjoy pumpkin spice, but I do enjoy peppermint. So I want everybody to like get to that level of obsessed so I can just be like, that's right. We've chosen
People's.
well this
I
time.
had one today.
I kind of did
Good.
too, actually.
See?
Yeah. Mhm.
Beautiful. Good.
See, but
Good.
that's
Starting.
moving from like Halloween, fall, Thanksgiving to Christmas. Peppermint belongs with Christmas,
It
so
does. I'm
they
not saying
have
we
their
need to move up
times.
a timeline. I'm not saying we need to move up a timeline. I just want us to like be as obsessed with like the time that peppermint latte is coming out as we are with like pumpkin spice everything.
Okay.
Here's a cool secret. You technically can order them off season.
Yes, of course. They always have the
Peppermint
syrup.
latte? Yeah.
You can see. I assault my senses with PSLs in like the September, October, November timeframe,
Yes.
and then after Thanksgiving, it immediately switches to peppermint mochas,
Yes.
and it's just like blasting me with Christmas.
hmm
That's
Alan says
what they
black
are.
coffee for me, which
Christmas in a cup, man.
the statistics say that most, you're more likely to be a serial killer if you drink just black coffee. I understand though, because at a restaurant, very often, like if it's a restaurant, I just get black coffee. I don't put anything in it.
Well, right.
But
Yeah.
when it's like a holiday time and stuff, and I'm going to one of the overpriced coffee venues spread across the country, I'm usually getting some form of pumpkin spice or peppermint. I had
Specialty.
Starbucks' gingerbread one the other day, which people were down on. I guess it was like one of the lower rated holiday drinks for Starbucks, but I enjoyed it. It was like a gingerbread cookie almond milk iced coffee thing, and I thought it was pretty good.
Mhm.
So
I will unabashedly, if I can use that, unabashedly order a s'mores frappuccino in the middle of summer
Good.
and just
Okay.
walk out of that store like I own the place.
Wow. Whatever makes your day, it's like
I feel like the point of
look at
like
me,
going to a
guys.
coffee shop is like not to get black coffee because why would I want something I could brew myself?
Thank you. I have an
Sure.
espresso at
Give
home.
me your specialty like crazy syruped up, whatever flavor combo you want me to try because I can't do that. I don't have like
Well,
time
okay,
to, buy 12
sure.
syrups and like
You can,
experiment
but
with
you'd
my
rather not. Yes, it was.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. I don't want like 12 bottles of coffee syrup sitting around, like, especially if I decide I don't like something.
Mhm.
Well, do you remember when
Like
you used to
so.
go to like 7-Eleven or something, or Quick Trip, when you were like 13 and you used to do suicides where you take the cup of pop and you just go to every single one and do that? If you went to like a
Yes.
coffee shop and asked for the same thing, I wonder what that would taste like.
Yeah.
We have to do that now. I would totally do that.
So live
That would be
stream it. Yeah. Mhm.
hilarious.
All right. So I'm
Oh
gonna I'm
god.
gonna I'm gonna ruin your day, barista. I need a large glass and I need a half pump of every syrup you've got.
Pretty
With
much.
2
And then
shots.
whatever room is left, you can put coffee in there.
Yep.
Just witness
Yep.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Witness, yeah. Uh-huh.
How has
Oh
somebody not
God.
done that already? And that's gotta be
Maybe
out
they
there
have.
somewhere.
Yeah, maybe they have.
That's gotta be out there somewhere.
Uh.
Uh,
See, Alan says sugar bombs. I do agree, but I, like the good millennial I am, I often customize. Very often I'll say I want
yeah.
half the chocolate, I want half this syrup, I want whatever, I very often do that.
Yeah, I have very simple orders, and I think it's because, as a self-respecting millennial, I don't like to mess with people who handle my food.
Well, this isn't
I like how you
this
have
is an
2 very different, like, ideas of millennial here. John's, like, maximum level, I will do, like, everything, and Tony's like, "No, no, no." Like, minimum, bare minimum, don't
Bare minimum. I'm
yeah.
easy
when
to
I'm
please.
first trying a drink, I will very often I just get it as is. I want to try the way that you're doing it. But the sad thing is you do have varying, it's supposed to be made the same way, but it is not always made the same way. So you can get
No.
extra sugary or you can get proper way or whatever, So yeah, I come to adjust it now. And because I'm usually not going for dessert. I'm always fascinated at all the people that are walking out of there with the extra large frappe, whipped cream on top. I'm like,
That's their
that's gonna
treat
do
for
you
the
in.
day.
That's gonna do you in.
It's like
It's gonna do
anybody
you in.
getting, like, a large Blizzard at Dairy Queen, it's probably roughly the same amount of calories.
It is
I know.
not.
I
Do
I
not
get
think it is.
I get the kid
I
size.
don't know.
I get the like fun snack size, whatever it is. I get the kid size
I can't
for
do
blizzards.
larges anymore. Large blizzards. They put me under.
Yeah. No, like, when I was a kid, I was always, like, really excited to order the max size that my parents would let me and just, like, hose it down, and now as an adult, yeah, absolutely, like, give me a small, maybe a medium,
Mhm.
maybe, if that's, like, a pregnancy craving day.
Yeah.
But, yeah, otherwise, forget it.
I've gotten very close to throwing up eating a blizzard from Dairy Queen that was too big. And my wife's like, "Stop, stop." I'm like, "I paid for it. I'm gonna eat it."
Wow. Wow.
That's a very millennial thing right there. I'm not gonna waste it. I gotta clean my plate, man. Ugh.
Wow. Wow. Well, I enjoy the coffee talk and the ice cream talk. We'll have to change. We'll have a sideshow coffee talk on the
Yes.
rocks. Yeah.
Yes, we will.
Thrilling.
I'll close this out here and round it out. The last 2 days that we've been celebrating here in the first week of December. Yesterday was Cabernet Franc Day, and today it is National Repeal Day.
Nice.
So,
All right.
happy holidays to you.
Well, Andrea, I'm guessing you're not particularly celebrating. You're probably doing, the water. You're doing the pre-repeal day special.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Well, I figured one of the days was already dedicated to me as a person, so I didn't really need to
Yeah,
do anything.
that's right. Mm-hmm. Tony, how about you? You got a beverage. You get your PSL on the no, your peppermint on the
My
side.
peppermint.
Yes,
Okay.
get it
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I downed that one. From Starbucks. We're not sponsored, but Starbucks, if you're interested, give us a
Blur the
shout.
logo. Yeah.
And no, I'm my usual. I'm a simple guy, just having some Jack on the rocks.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Living up
Um,
to our tagline here. Sometimes there's whiskey.
yes. Thank goodness. Someone's got to do it. Tony, good job.
Poor John's
I
been carrying the torch.
yeah, I drink so little these days now, so I guess the podcast is my chance. So I have a G&T, so I'm not celebrating really any of the holidays other than the obvious like repeal day, which is a catch-all. But I I should have kind of after I made this, I remembered I was going to do a Japanese whiskey in honor of our topics tonight, or make some sort of cyberpunky drink. But
Yeah.
I got too fixated on showing Tony this because I'd shown it off last week. But if you didn't see it, I'm using James May's newest gin, American Ramstud.
Ooh.
So of Top Gear fame, James May, he has his own gin line, and this they couldn't call it American Mustard here for legal reasons, so they made an anagram of mustard, and it's now American Ramstud. And yeah, it's really complex. It has a lot of as Andrea pointed out last week, almost too many components probably, but
It is quite
it
the ingredient
works.
list.
Yeah, it works. So it's like yellow mustard seed, gherkin, juniper, coriander seed, angelica root, dried tomato, licorice root, orange peel, uh, cubeb pepper. I still didn't look that up. Don't know what that is. Rosemary, caraway seed, ginger, and bay. So
Like
I know.
my
I see the look
grandmother's
on your
spice
face.
rack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Coriander or not? Did you say
yeah, coriander. Yeah.
coriander? What was what's the one I'm thinking of? It'll come to me later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, that's what I got this week. Doing this just straight G&T with it. It's very flavorful and refreshing.
It's
Cardamom.
very fitting for a repeal day celebrating the end of Prohibition when, I mean, gin was basically the side hustle drink of choice during
Oh yeah.
Prohibition.
Okay.
Mhm.
Nice.
I mean,
Well,
easiest to
I mean, I
make,
meant
fastest
to
to
do
win.
this. Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
So, yep.
All right. Drinks aside, Tony. Well, actually, we'll start with you. It's been a while, so give us like, what have you been up to? What's the pop culture things that we talked Moon Knight was brought up. What's been since then that's really stood out, or what are you presently engaged with?
So it's been a while. So I wanted to condense this into like what's been the most frequent that I could probably talk to. I started Andor and I haven't finished it, and I want to because I've heard nothing but good things from Andor, and it's been recommended to me by like 6 different people. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll watch it. Fine. And it was on my list already. I just haven't made the time. But I did do this weird throwback where I remembered when I was living abroad. My roommate had pirated all of the seasons of How I Met Your Mother, and I was like, you know what? I want to like revisit that because I remember like we were obsessed with that show, and this is back when I was like 20, 21, or no, 21, 22, somewhere around there. And I started watching them again. I hate that show. Like I got through the first like 7 seasons. I mean, I'm in this one where
That's
it's like
pretty
the
good.
second to last season. I can't remember, but I hit a wall where all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know if I can finish this series, this TV show, because the more I watch it, the more I realize I hate Ted as a character. I just can't handle him, and like the character development is like halfway, and then it completely just derails, and everyone loses their character development, and like they all revert back to like what they were in season 1 and 2. I was like, oh my god, okay, I can't. It's just so outrageous, and the story is so weird that I don't know if I can finish it. But it's like the first like 3 or 4 seasons, it's funny and like it's got a little charm to it, and you kind of understand what's going on. And then I don't know if it's just maybe they strung it out too long, or they just had to figure out how to end it and they didn't know how. It's just like, okay, all right, can't do it. So that was interesting. And then I started up on Futurama again, just having that on in the background. Because as John would love to hear, I needed to take a break from Big Bang Theory because I was on my 8th watch through, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna switch over again.
I mean, Tony, do
Uh,
you understand how many shows there are? Like, my backlog is ridiculous, and you choose to return to the well of Big Bang Theory. Jesus, see, Tony.
no, it's bad. And the thing is like I have a backlog, but I never remember what my backlog is. So I gotta start
Make a
writing stuff
list. Yeah.
down when
Yeah.
people tell me to watch it, because otherwise I don't. I did, however, so one of my favorite show or movies when I was growing up was Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
I was a huge fan of that. And so now every Christmas or every holiday, Nicole and I will watch Santa Claus, and then we do 2 and 3, and we watch them just because they are just hysterical. But we ended up watching the series now, where they have Tim Allen comes back
Yeah.
as
Oh,
Santa Claus, and
okay.
he's going to retire, and he wants to, spend time with his family after being Santa Claus for like 28 years. And then
Yep.
so it's a very interesting show. It starts off slow. Like I would say that the first 2 episodes are kind of like, okay, what are they doing? How are they setting it up? And then moving forward, I actually was like, okay, I'm on board. I'm on board for this crazy train. I want to see where it goes.
Okay. Nice.
So
We're
those are the
getting in the
shows
holiday
I've been kind
spirit.
of watching.
I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
And then of
I
course,
forgot that was gonna be a series. I thought that was just like a movie that they were doing, and I forgot that like they were actually making a Santa Claus series out of that.
yeah, I thought it
What
was just a
network is
movie
that
too.
on?
Disney Plus.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
And then of course I have to watch them, but I have fallen in love with really bad Hallmark and Netflix Christmas movies.
Yes,
I
I
love
love
them.
it.
I need to watch them.
Have you watched the new one with Lindsay Lohan?
Yes, and I loved
I
it.
haven't watched it yet. But I feel like I need to.
You need to watch that.
My teen self is just like screaming, like, you have to watch this. I don't care if it's the biggest piece of hot garbage. Like, you obviously have to see it.
And here's the funny part, like, it does not try to be something it knows it's not. Like
Sure.
it lays into
Leans
like,
in.
listen, we got Lindsay Lohan. We're gonna make her this like charismatic, kind of lovable character, and it's gonna be full on Hallmark Netflix type of just
Love it.
crazy Christmas love story. And you're like, all right, let's do it.
I love it. Ugh.
Well,
Sweet.
those are some choices. I've heard that the Lindsay
John
Lohan
is
thing
like, those are choices.
Those are shows.
yeah.
Those are things your eyes can see.
I've heard relatively positive things about the Lindsay Lohan one. I'm planning to hopefully watch the Will Ferrell Ryan Reynolds movie,
Oh,
Christmas movie.
I did watch
Spirited
that one.
something.
I don't
I watched
remember what
that
it's called.
one.
I think it's on Apple.
Spirited.
Spirited?
It's Spirited.
Yeah.
Spirited.
Okay.
Okay.
It is have you any of you, either of you watched it?
Not yet, no.
So it's a musical. Didn't
Right.
know that.
Yes.
Did not know that going in.
Oh.
But if you're a fan of the Christmas Carol, that
Yes.
is the motif that it takes. And I don't want to spoil anything or ruin anything, but I will say that I think it does a really good job at uniquely portraying the Christmas Carol motif, which there are hundreds
Right.
of movies that do the Christmas Carol.
Yes.
I myself am a huge Christmas Carol fan. I watch it every year. I go to the Guthrie in
Same.
Minneapolis, and I will watch
Same.
the Christmas Carol and see what rendition they're going to do of it. So I like know the story inside and out. I've read the book, I've seen the plays, I've seen movies, I've seen multiple different versions of it, like with Patrick Stewart and the Muppets Christmas Carol. Like I love them all.
Obviously the best.
Yeah, I was say that's the only one you really need, right? To me,
Yeah,
it's
that pretty much just
Not the only one. No.
No.
But it's the best.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, or like Scrooged, right?
That's another good one.
Bill Murray, you know. Mhm.
You
Yes.
have to like you. Scrooge is weird because like there are a lot of people that do not like Scrooged.
Yeah.
And that is a hit or miss comedy. I think you have to
Yep.
like Bill Murray. You have to like what they're going for in that like comedic take on it.
Well, and
Otherwise, it doesn't fit.
I actually also think you don't just have to like Bill Murray. I mean, you have to like Bill Murray because I think people go into it just thinking like, "Oh, Bill Murray, like this is going to be so cute." And like Scrooge is not what they're expecting.
Mm.
So you can't just be like, "This is a Bill Murray movie, I am going to like it."
Do
You
you
have to like
think
know that it's a little
that's
bit
a
different.
modern audience thing though? Because Bill Murray now is sort of this weird status thing, and like people will put Bill Murray's picture on their shirt. Like he's become something larger, and there's
Yeah,
a hilarity to what his image has become. But back in the day, like just a comedic actor, you know, coming whether it's like from
right.
Ghostbusters or something like that. It's like he was seen different and was different versus now if someone's familiar with, oh, is he that guy in that zombie movie, you know, or
Right.
whatever. It's like,
That's what I mean.
and they're
Like you
not
can't just
that.
be like, "Oh, I've seen Bill Murray in Ghostbusters, like this is that," because it's not
Mhm,
that.
It's not. No.
mhm.
It's a really weird role for Bill Murray to
Yes.
play. Like he is a manic asshole in that movie. But no, I mean your point. Bill Murray's a vibe. He's 100%
Yeah.
a
Yes.
vibe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, cool. That's a lot of good stuff. Andrea, how about you? You've been holidaying it up at all, or I mean, I know you do the baking show
Um,
normally.
yeah, I know. So we have not watched the holiday version of the Great British Baking Show yet, although we did finish the regular season. And like my second person,
Right.
won. So I'm
Yeah.
excited
All
about
right.
that.
Nice. Cool.
Like my first person got eliminated and I was
Mhm,
crushed and devastated, but then the person I
mhm.
was like, okay, if they're not there, I want this person. They got it. So I'm cool.
Awesome.
But I did, speaking of holidays, do kind of like a throwback to Halloween watch. I started the new Netflix series Wednesday
Okay.
Ooh.
with Jenna Ortega in the lead role. Uh I've only seen the first episode, so based on like some preliminary judgments, it's set up well. Jenna Ortega as Wednesday does like nails the deadpan that
Hmm.
Christina Ricci perfected, I think,
Sure.
in the Addams Family movies. Catherine Zeta-Jones is a treat as Morticia. She is
Okay.
wonderful. She is pouring all of her vamp into that role, and I love it.
Hmm.
Uh, Gwen Christie as the headmistress has a lot of potential and a lot of potential
Hmm.
for like some fun backstory because she's definitely like playing a surface stereotype that I feel like is hiding some stuff.
It's like
So I dig
Gwendolyn
it.
Christie, like
Yeah.
okay, Game of Thrones. Okay.
Brienne of Tarth.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then there are a couple of surprise guest appearances that I don't want to ruin. So I just want to say like those are fun little like treats for the viewer as well. Um, so yeah, I think it's a strong opening and I'm really excited to see the rest of the series. And
Okay.
Chris shockingly was very excited about watching it. Which I shouldn't have been as surprised because I did introduce him to the Addams Family movies like just a couple of years ago and he was like,
Hmm.
these are amazing. So I should
Nice.
have known he would want to watch it, but now I gotta slow down and be on his timetable. So we'll see how far we get.
Hmm. Yeah, I was considering that one. I've heard pretty good things. Mostly,
Yeah.
like you said, mirroring the really good performance from the lead. Um, heard the only thing I've really heard about is some pacing. It's like
Yeah,
some pacing
I could
issues,
see
but
that being an issue for sure.
mhm.
But like I said, I'm only one episode in, so I don't want to like
Yep.
say for certain how I feel about it. But yeah, strong start.
Cool.
Um, and then I've just watched a couple of other things because I've really been focused on like starting and finishing shows.
Mm.
Um, so I finished Romantic Killer, um, also a Netflix production. Um, and that was really good. It did suffer, I think, a little bit from some pacing issues, speaking of, and it suffered a little bit from, I think, spreading out too many characters over too few episodes where you like didn't get to.
Okay.
So it's like a cute romantic comedy with like a harem feel of like our main heroine gets like a bunch of suitors and goes on building relationships with each of them. And I think they just didn't give us enough time to like really settle with each different like possibility. So
Hmm.
it was a little too surface level, so it wasn't like quite as meaningful. It was fun, it was cute, like it did what it was designed to do, but it could have been more. So I was a little
Okay.
bit disappointed with that.
Did it do the thing where, that an anime often does in the you kind of find who you want to root for to be
Yeah.
the pick, and then they make you frustrated because they're going another way or like all this stuff? It's like,
Yes.
no, just stop, Okay.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
All right.
Yep. They like find success like introducing the new person, and it's like great, we have like more options and it's all fun, and like she gets, time with each and you get to pick your one. But then it just like did that, I think, one too many times.
Hmm. Right. That was kind of my
So
problem with Rascal Does Not Dream a Bunny Girl Senpai, because it was too, who the person should be with, and then they have to come up with reasons and excuses to kind of create love triangles, love
yep.
quadrangles, and like just all different stuff. And
Misunderstanding
yeah.
scenarios and yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
So
So Gilmore
So
Girls.
oh god, like
uh,
one of the longest stretches. Oof.
uh,
But yes. Um and then I started and finished another Netflix series called Business Proposal, where a young woman goes on a blind date for her friend with the intent of like rejecting this guy and scaring him away, as she's done for her friend like a million other times, which is to me like one of the most fun parts of the series. You get to like see the other ways she's like creatively rejected her dates. So if anybody's ever looking for some ideas, this show's got some for you.
okay.
um but yeah, so she goes on this blind date unknowing that it's the CEO, of course, of her own company. So she like kind of freaks out. She's
Mm.
like, "Oh my god, like what if I run into him at work and he like sees me and fires me because I went on this date and pretended to be like totally nuts." So yeah, so it's very like, you know, comedy like in the workplace, like I have to avoid him, but now suddenly he's everywhere and like,
Yeah.
oh, he figures out my scheme, like, now he wants me to pretend to be his girlfriend and, like, yeah,
All
it's
plausible, very realistic.
all,
Yes.
like, super things that
Mhm.
obviously happen every day in the workplace.
Mhm. I
Um,
I like those things
but
though. I've read a few
it was cute.
mangas in that way. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it was well acted. The leads had very great chemistry, and the second couple actually, like, the B pairing, were really, really funny and really great.
Okay.
So, I enjoy that when you can, like, not only root for the lead couple, but you got, like, that. Kinda like our
Right.
maybe meant to be
Yeah. Right.
webtoon that we're reading,
Exactly.
like, you have a strong side couple that you're like, "Yeah, you too."
Absolutely. Mhm.
So,
Yep. Tony, you should get on reading Maybe Meant to Be. It's free. It's on your phone. It's a webtoon.
webtoons!
It's yeah, it's really good. I mean, if you're into the holiday movies from Hallmark Channel,
Oh gosh, yeah.
nothing is beneath you. So like you can manage.
Hey, John.
John's like, "This is the last bastion of culture I will accept right here." It's the lowest rung on my culture ladder. Hallmark
it's
movies.
it, in fairness, it's not. I could think of other things. Yeah, well, I watched a lot of anime this week. I really a big mix of things, honestly.
Yeah.
Chainsaw Man, 2 episodes in the last couple weeks here, episode 7 and 8. I talked about that on a separate show on our channel. You can go ahead and watch. It was a bonus episode this week or whatever. Had some good engagement there. So if you're interested in Chainsaw Man specifically, go ahead and take a look at that. Suffice it to say that it's beginning to live up to the hype for sure. So I'm enjoying that. I started a show on Netflix called Somebody, and it's it's a Korean show that's kind of a thriller murder sort of thing, and it's shot well. It's well acted. I've seen the first 2 episodes. There's a few moments it is jumping between a number of characters and stories, and they're all kind of connected. And so there was some confusion there, and maybe some odd effects, but overall I'm intrigued by the mystery of it, and it's a good looking show. So hoping to continue with that. Tony, I thought you would bring up Warhammer Darktide, actually. So Tony and I played a few games of Warhammer 40K Darktide. It's available on Game Pass now. Just came out the other day. It had been in beta a little bit. So been playing that. That's really kind of got me back into the Warhammer world a little bit. Listening to the soundtrack to that today, it was really good.
I was too.
And yeah, it's pretty legit. So that's been fun.
I do enjoy that game. I do. If anybody listening is even remotely interested in like the Warhammer 40K lore, right? I mean, this is a great entry into kind of a peek behind the curtain as to like how insane that lore is and like how deep it goes. It is really cool. I think that's a really wonderful sci-fi grim dark type atmosphere, and I think it captures it really well. It gets me really excited.
Yeah, you should. I have a recommendation for you. I've talked about this author quite a bit on here before, but Tsutomu Nihei. You should look up his work, because I'm reading right now this particular manga. He has several. Blam is my favorite, but this is Abara, and it really is a lot of the kind of, I would describe it as grimdark, like you were sort of saying. It's set in very dystopian future kind of times, and yeah, it's really, to me, is in a similar sort of vibe. But
yeah, the far-flung future where there is only war.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, something like that. So, yeah, that's what I've been up to basically. All the reading and such. But we'll move along here. We had just one news story because found out about it today and thought it deserved the time to talk about it a little bit. Kirstie Alley, that I know anyways from Cheers. I'm sure many people know her from that. Has just passed away at the age of 71 from cancer. So, our thoughts and condolences with her family. I didn't realize she was 71.
I didn't either. I mean, she seems simultaneously too young and too old to be 71.
I just would imagine she was like 60. I don't know.
Like I feel like she looked really youthful for her age. She looked younger than 71. And sort of, but when I just conceptualized like Kirstie Alley and thinking about like the fact that she was on Cheers, that just feels like pre my lifetime like popularity.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like the height of its popularity is just like pre like what I would consider to be like my prime TV watching years. So it just sort of felt like Cheers was somehow older than it was.
I definitely grew up with it, so it
be.
was like regular thing for me. Even
I
Gotcha.
did not watch it. I actually had to look. I'm trying to look up like
things she's
her
been in.
film discography or whatever you want to filmography.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I know I've seen her in a lot of things, but it's like I can't off the top of my head remember what they are. Because I never watched Cheers. It was like Cheers and Wing. Was it Wings? What was the other one?
Was she in Wings?
No, but that was like that same era of television.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that era, I that was right before I started really watching TV.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so like I watched Cheers like retroactively. Like I didn't watch like, you know, when it was going on, like when it was on the air. So then I just
Okay.
feel like Cheers is older than it is, so that therefore I thought like she must be older than she is.
Mm.
Okay. Sure. I understand. Well, anyways, again, thoughts with the family. Sorry
Yes,
for her
very sad
passing.
news.
And
Good stuff.
yeah. All right. Moving on from there, no other news, but there's something I was going to bring up on the anime podcast, but then I'm like, well, maybe I'm completely off base here. So I wanted to, ask what you guys thought about it. So my idea here is that Japanese content is something that I'm particularly enthralled with and have been for a long time. And I think the part of what makes that really unique is how um, Japanese content with American content in particular has borrowed so heavily from one another for so long. When we talk about anime in particular, it was very much inspired by the early Walt Disney stuff. And then they brought it back and did their own thing. And now we see the kind of reverse where that's the popular thing, and Disney is in fact working to bring more anime to their service. Um, but what stands out to me, and I thought of this when I started reading webtoons, which is more commonly Korean content, is you'll often see webtoons that are very about being in Korea. And it's a lot of that stuff is feels a little more foreign. Some of the things they deal with when they go and use historical things, it's very often in their fantasy historical Korea context or whatever. Whereas when you look at the breadth of Japanese content over the years, many of the largest properties are using Western content and telling it from a Japanese perspective. So when we look at video games, some of the examples I brought were Resident Evil and Mario. Resident Evil is in like a Detroit, or I forget what, it's Raccoon City. It's in America, but these are Japanese people making this and telling their own version of it. Mario, the Italian plumber, so they're using
Actually,
a
I, I don't
Western.
I don't think Mario's Italian.
Yeah, he's supposed to be. Yeah,
No, I
that's
think he's
that,
from New York.
that they're doing that now for the movie. But it's always been an Italian plumber.
Oh,
Yeah, so
I
they
was
can
thinking.
change it, if they want or whatever. But because clearly they're having Chris Pratt be the voice for it and stuff. But um, Final Fantasy jumps all over the place, but it's kind of this mix, Often it's the medieval knights that they're doing in a Final Fantasy kind of setting. And so Cowboy Bebop, when you look at anime, is essentially a love letter to Western or American culture. There's a lot of cowboys in the name. The episode titles are all about based off of bands and songs and stuff like that. So I just think this is part of what makes Japanese content so unique and great, because we certainly get things that are very, what we would identify as very Japanese, but we also get a lot of content that's them playing with Western culture and Western ideas. And I think sometimes other places are afraid to do that, or they don't feel the need or something. Very often here, someone, if they're writing a story, look at our Spider-Man. Spider-Man is based on the East Coast. It's a New York thing. Superman and Batman as well. That's supposed to be essentially like a New York. It's East Coast. Like, we play with our home, and not that Japan doesn't do that. They obviously do. Like Persona, you are in Japan, you can walk all around Shinjuku and all this stuff. They absolutely do. But there's just so many things. The list is kind of endless of them using Western stuff and doing their own spin on it. And I just think that it's kind of one of the tricks to their stuff being so great, and also maybe resonating with a broader audience in general.
I mean, I would agree. I think prior to what you could see as like the globalization of world entertainment, which would be kind of the introduction and the height of the streaming services, really I think brought a lot of access to material that was not accessible by people in the West, right? Um, Prior to that, you'd say anime, and it was basically if it came out of Japan, it was anime. If it didn't, it wasn't. I mean, that was in my mind kind of how you looked at it, right? Because then you had like Toonami, and they would always have Toonami was your anime special. Like they would always show Dragon Ball Z, Cowboy Bebop, Yu Yu Hakusho, Zatch Bell, like all these, shows that were primarily developed, written, and uh, uh, sorry, I can't think of the word.
Produced, yeah, yeah,
Thank you, produced out of Japan. But now you have this globalization where, to your point, it's it's not become like more of a genre. It's become kind of like just a style of how you portray a story, how the world works in that area or in the lore, stuff like that. It's become very globalized, and I think that gives them leeway to reach a broader audience, but also for people, like American producers to create their own Americanized version of those shows. Some good, some not.
I'm
Sure.
sorry. I checked out for just a little bit there because I had to look up the origins of Mario.
Mhm.
And there's some like friction about who he is. Apparently the creator um has said very like directly and specifically that he was influenced by the Western comics that he was reading, so he decided to give him very Western features like the overly large nose and eyes. Um, and he was like, the setting didn't really matter to me very much, so I just decided Mario's a plumber. Let's put him in New York, and he can be Italian.
The-
Okay.
th-
So
he's
he's
from the Bronx.
he says Italian New York. So he's the creator. The game's the engineer said Super Mario Brothers isn't set in Japan, but the character's Japanese. The name
Wow.
Mario sounds Italian, but he isn't Italian. They were really able to capture that ambiguity.
So the reason I was like convinced that he was from New York, right? I think it's twofold. One is because I thought he always was, like in my mind. I think I always thought he was just like a New York Italian plumber, right? But then
Sure.
two, because of, in my mind, the A-list movie Super Mario Bros. From the 90s, that was just unbelievably fantastic. All of you watching, if you've never seen the original Super Mario Bros. Live action movie, it is it is something to behold, right? It is
You're in
something
for
to
a
behold,
treat.
and you need to watch that movie. That is, I think, also why I thought he was from like New York.
Okay.
Well, apparently
Yeah.
he is. Or maybe not, or he's from Japan.
I
No,
mean,
I'm teasing.
a lot of those things,
Life.
people kind of underestimate, or I guess overthink it when, your company and you're deciding to make this thing. A lot of times all this thought doesn't go into it. It's not until it
Yeah,
explodes and it's a massive thing and you're like 20 games in, and it's ballooned way more than you ever
right.
initially thought. And so
Suddenly
it creates these kind of what is this? What was that? It's like, guys, we were drawing cool things. So like
yeah,
you weren't supposed to take it so seriously and like, but then it blows up. So I
yeah.
completely understand, everybody.
Well, yeah, that's why I think the creator was saying like you know, they set the game underground, he was like a plumber, so I just decided he was a plumber going through pipes in New
Yeah.
York City. Like
Yeah.
he's Italian now too. Cool.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
So
Print it, send it, sell it.
Yeah, right. Rubber
so
stamp
that,
it,
but
done.
that's what I mean. Like very often it seems, and to me, at least what I'm familiar with, it seems like a lot of other cultures, and it's normal when you're a writer you write what you know. So you write
Mhm.
what's around you. You write the experiences you've had. You write what you've seen because, you know, you look at anyone doing a historical fiction novel, that's a lot of research because you probably didn't know a lot of it. So Um, but the Japanese seem unafraid to take things that they've seen culture-wise from other places and just use it. Just play with it, you know? Legend of Zelda, again, is medieval sort of thing. If you look at a lot of, like, Chinese fiction right now and stuff, at least in the kind of, comic space, again, it's very much using ancient China as the template. They're not writing something that is dealing with medieval Europe kind of thing. I'm watching Spy Family now. It's a story about East versus West, but is very much, the characters have English names, Western names, and it's very much designed like it'd be like a Berlin or something. And so I just think it sets them apart. And anime and manga is known for being way out there and having tons of original ideas. Like the sheer scope of all the content and what they're about sometimes is ludicrous, but you find all kinds of amazing things with it. And I think that other places would maybe benefit in using this kind of thing for cultures that they really are appreciative of, and that have a lot of that have had a lot of influence on their own
Well, I
culture.
think
I mean,
manga especially is insanely unique because anime and manga, the art style and the way that it's done, I think portrays emotion and story differently than a lot of other media, and it works in that genre of media, right? Like the way that you can portray anger, frustration, happiness, love, excitement, adventure, all that kind of stuff. You can almost like you can have two spectrums of it where you can go incredibly insane and like things just don't make sense but they somehow work. People are flying around, they're pulling out weapons out of pockets of multi-dimensional universes and everything like that, and it works, and it all kind of culminates in that story. And it's very unique because there's not a lot of genre of entertainment that can get away with that and still be good.
Andrew, you were going to say something?
yeah, I mean, I was gonna take, kind of a thought in a different direction. I mean, part of me wonders and thinks about, the fact that cultural content that's coming from Japan seems to, like as you said, have so much more room to play and to be unafraid of expanding beyond its own borders. Part of me wonders if that's because, at least as far as Western audiences go, we've been exposed to more cultural export from Japan, and places like Korea and China are still feeling out a toehold of what comes from us. How do we create our own, unique cultural export and storytelling in a way that's not only, unique and telling an original story, but is also representative of our culture? Because, do people know what our culture is? Can they differentiate it? People in the West, can they differentiate it from, like, oh, it's just from Asian, origin, so it must be Japanese content. I
Right.
mean, obviously there are people who will pick up on a nuance, or people who are interested and like care about the delineation. But for like mass, broad, general audience that you're trying to market to, like, I just wonder if they're trying to feel out their own toeholds. Like, obviously, South Korea in particular has had success with like exporting K-pop, and that's
Right.
like very centered on their cultural identity. So it's, you know, on the one hand, like they found a formula for success that I think encourages them to keep things like uniquely focused on Korea, but then also like maybe there's a stepping point later where they can say like, okay, like we've established who we are, like our cultural base, like let's start
And
growing.
And you're right, because that is happening right now. I forget what version they call it, is like K-pop V4. I don't know which one it's on now. But basically it is that. The discussion has been, you might see K-pop groups that are based out of somewhere else that have no
Sure, yeah.
Korean talent. And so right now, my favorite group is there's 3 Korean members and 2 Japanese members. And another new group is like 2 Korean women and a couple Vietnamese and a Vietnamese Australian. Like, so
Okay.
they're understanding that they do have an export here, and it has
Sure.
gained a lot of attention, and so they're doing what they can to broaden that horizon and broaden the market that they already have, without losing what makes it what it is.
So
Right.
it's a genre of music. So I apologize. I'm not into K-pop. Like I don't listen to it. I don't really know a lot about it. Um, so it sounds to me like it's kind of becoming more of a genre of music than it is a geographic type export, right? So
I
it'd be
think
like,
so.
oh,
Yes.
country music. You have, dubstep, dance, EDM, and K-pop, or like kind of. So it's like anybody can do K-pop. It's just that type of genre music.
I think that,
Evolving into that, yeah.
yeah, and I think that's the way it's going to be. We're talking with manga and anime and different stuff like that, because the lines are going to be blurred. You have different production places from all over the place that are hiring for whatever content to be made. They're getting farmed out to all different places. And I'm like, I was talking to Ashley about this before, and I'm like, okay, every place has their own local word for what comic is. And I do not expect anyone to call it manga when it's from Japan, and manhwa when it's from Korea, and manhua when it's from China, and comic books when it's from America, and whatever for all the places. That's an unrealistic expectation, and I understand that it's gonna just be called manga if it's in that style. And it's going to be called anime if it can be in that style. And I think eventually, yeah, it's going to be K-pop if it's in that style. So I do think that's where we're going. I agree. Anyways, yeah, thought I'd run it by you guys, see if you had thoughts. We do need to talk about our main topic here, Cyberpunk Edgerunners. So, as I mentioned, we saw this a while ago. It is an anime that is written by a Polish person, that is produced by Netflix. So, case in point. Um, but yeah, Andrew, you found this, that they've come on record and say there's not plans for a season 2.
Yeah, yeah. There was a little bit of coyness, I think, around whether or not Netflix was maybe gonna like pick up a season 2 or like order a second season, and CD Projekt Red was like, it's one season intentional. Like that's what we really wanted. So I don't know if maybe Netflix was the one pushing for more, or if there was just like, internet buzz out there like, oh, this is such a great show, we really would love a second season. But yeah, they've officially come out and said like this is going to be a standalone work. That's how you should consider it. And I think if you've watched all the way to the end, it's not really shocking that they would consider this standalone, because character wise they didn't leave themselves many avenues to go to.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually love that about it. And I think if they did do a second season, or they did a second rendition of this, the smart thing for CD Projekt Red to do would be to pounce on this popularity from the show, and they would create an anthology series, because the
Sure.
world they've created is insane. I mean, Cyberpunk 2077, apart from kind of the bugginess that it was, the lore in the world is beautiful. It's a really wonderful world to explore. And I think they could do a lot with that.
Yeah, I agree. I do like this statement from CDPR. I think it's a good call. That this was their plan, and it also plays into Studio Trigger nicely, because Studio Trigger, Gurren Lagann 1 season, Kill la Kill 1 season, Darling in the Franxx 1 season. They tell stories that come to an end. You know, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They are completed, and then they move on to new stuff. Generally speaking, Promare, they made a movie. It's one movie. So I think this is great. You leave people wanting more. Hopefully, people then both want more of Cyberpunk world and more of what this studio is responsible for. And yeah, I think it's
Well,
the right
it's
choice.
funny that you mentioned that because I was going to text you when I was watching it. I got as like the second episode, second or third. I think it was like the second or third episode. I was watching the show and I'm like, why does this feel like FLCL? Like
Oh,
why am I getting like Felically vibes from this? And then I looked it up, and that's when I figured out that it was the publisher that did that. I was like, oh wow, it's the same publisher
publisher.
or the same like
Um,
the same group.
okay.
Studio group. I don't know what you call them.
I'm gonna look this up because this does not because it's clearly a different team than what I'm talking about with Studio Trigger. Because I don't think there's any involvement with them here. So yeah, Gainax, Production IG. Production IG is huge, but they're different. There's a name attached. Um, so I'm not not saying you saw something wrong, but I don't know what
I
it is.
could have. I was just kind of browsing around looking at the studios that were involved with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe they had a help from an animation studio that was involved here or something like that. I don't know, I guess, but but yeah, I can see the similarities for sure. You know, there's a
it looks like they had some overlapping directors for episodes.
Okay. Nice. Makes sense.
But I mean, I thought Cyberpunk Edgerunners was a very refreshing take on this genre. Like especially with Netflix kind of didn't you come and tell me that like Netflix had been cutting a lot of their animation budget going into this
That was
past
the
year?
tale, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it kind of bummed me out because I was like also a huge fan of the League of Legends Arcane.
Arcane,
I
yeah.
thought Arcane
Yeah.
was really good. And when the
Awesome.
Edgerunners came out, I'm like, that's like another home run. Like that's some serious stuff that they're pumping out here. That's available to, like what I said earlier with that global, that's available to a very wide audience to really bring a huge popularity to that. I just thought, you know, in a world where we are oversaturated with entertainment and there are shows all over the place, there's new stuff being produced every single day, to have something that is very pure, very true to its source material, very well written, very well directed, very concise on the message and the story it wanted to tell, was very refreshing, and I really enjoyed that from Edgerunners. Plus, there's not a lot of shows that I watch where you actively have an emotional attachment to the main characters. Like you end up getting attached to these characters and you truly want them to succeed. It was just an emotional roller coaster, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, Tony, you've played the game. Andrea, you haven't played the game, and you both like it.
Yes.
So, a success, you know.
Yeah, I think Netflix is straddling a line very well recently, with a lot of like video game based content. Obviously, I don't think anybody's going to argue that Castlevania is like a huge success. And again, as somebody who's like barely touched, anything in the gaming world, like, to me, that's one of my favorite things that Netflix has produced recently. Arcane, I have never played League of Legends, so I had nothing.
Nor
Even
should
though I
you.
know, like, even though I know, like, it wasn't like, let me tell you the story of League of Legends. I know it was very like side attached to it. Um, still not having any of that context and thinking like Arcane is also again a really strong production, and then coming here and not having played the game, like, I think Netflix is doing that really well right now. Like whoever they're farming out these projects to, they're making smart hires.
Yeah.
Well, I think it touches on, because I also like I never played League of Legends, and it's one of those ones that I was told not to play League of Legends either.
Right.
But it's also not my cup of tea for games, so it's all good. But what you have with Arcane and Edgerunners is a very beautiful thing, because you know the people that were behind it, the writers, the animators, they loved the source material. They were passionate about the project itself, and they wanted to tell a really good story and be true to that. And I think a lot of what you see Netflix, what they've done in the past, and why I got upset with Netflix is let's take, and this is gonna be an example that's probably gonna trigger John. Let's take Cowboy Bebop.
Oh God! Why?
That's an example.
Why? I'm gonna just shut off this camera, this microphone, just like get out of here.
I wasn't on this podcast.
I probably have time to make my own like eggnog and rhubarb pie, so I'll see you in a couple hours.
I knew that was going to be the response too, because I have been on the phone with John for hours as he's ranted about it. So I'm just going to bring it up though, as a very quick aside. That is a perfect juxtaposition to these shows, as this is what happens when you want to pump something out and attach a name to it just to get viewership, versus this is what we want to do, and we're going to give it to somebody who cares and loves the story, and they're going to present something. The popularity comes from that, because you get that sense of story, you get that sense of they wanted to make something great out of this. And I knew it was good when I had a buddy who had never played Cyberpunk actually ask me, is it worth playing, after watching Edgerunners? And 100% I was like, yeah, play it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you'll love all the connections then. You know, you'll love all the sound effects are the same. You get a phone call, it's there. You know, you crossing the street and the sound's there. Like all that stuff adds up a lot. Taking music from the soundtrack and great selection of songs, I think, was a good call. They, though they're very different styles, the two fit so well together if you migrate from one to the next. And I think that they also made the right call and didn't do what so many others want to do now, which I think is just the worst mistake. We have it with Sony in particular right now, is who I think of. They're trying to take, and they did it with Cowboy Bebop. You try to take the thing that exists and retell that story in a new medium, as opposed to expanding upon. This is not retelling the game story. This is telling another story in this world. And it makes the whole experience more rich. I don't know why people can't learn this. It happened with Star Wars. It's why Star Wars was so great. You had all these pieces that would add to the puzzle. That's why people like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. All these pieces that added to the puzzle, you know? It's like each thing builds upon the next and makes the other one better. If you just retell it, they're coming with the Last of Us show on HBO. If you've played the game, fine, you'll rewatch it. You'll watch the show probably, but do you really care that much if you know what's going to happen exactly? Like, wouldn't you rather see how things got started? Wouldn't you rather see a different character and their struggles, or how they got to the point? And now you have questions and you want to play the game because you want to finish that story, or you want more to it. Obviously, not everybody has to do this all the time, but I am definitely a proponent of this. And I think you're only causing more curiosity and building more value to your property by expanding it as opposed to duplicating it.
Let me ask you a question then, because I'm actually excited for the Last of Us show. I really love the game. I just want to see what they're going to do. It's one of those where like I'm excited because I want to see what they're going to do. But let me ask you this. So when it comes to the medium of which you want to tell these stories, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, obviously it's an anime. Do you think you could do a Cyberpunk live action story? Or do you think the medium would detract from that world?
I'm assuming by Cyberpunk live action story, you mean like tied specifically to Cyberpunk, like 2077.
Yeah,
like not just like tell me a live action Cyberpunk as a genre story.
No. I'm talking like
Okay.
Edgerunners, but live action. And not the same stories as Edgerunners. I'm just saying like a story like Edgerunners, but live action
Sure.
instead of anime.
Like
The
Lucy makes it, and we're gonna like tell a side story about like what happens next.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do
Mhm.
something like that. But then they decided like they're not going to do it animated. They're going to do it live action.
Yeah.
Right.
That would be my question: is could you pull off that type of story, that motif, in live action?
current day American media could not. No. But
agree.
yes, it could totally be done. Like there's no reason it can't be done. Yeah, I mean, the 2 Blade Runner movies are amazing. I love the Blade Runner movies. They're, obviously hallmarks of the cyberpunk genre. So yes, we could do it, but
Altered Carbon season 1 is my favorite
season
example.
1 though, season 1, and then they dropped
I
the
know.
ball.
All I'm
I
saying is
still haven't
season
finished it.
1
Yes.
is a
So I think
beautiful,
it's
beautiful
totally
example.
possible, but if it was announced, it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck.
I've been a firm believer now, and I feel like it still holds true. Video games are a medium to tell a story. I still think to this day you cannot make a live action video game movie.
Well,
Like,
do you
what
mean
about
like
The
a
Witcher?
direct adaptation?
Yeah, like either an adaptation or yeah, I'm trying to think here. So an example would be like so remember back when we were kids how they had like movies coming out that were always like the Resident Evil series,
Right.
right? The Resident Evil movies that were loosely based on
Yeah.
that
Let's
world.
emphasize that loose.
Yes,
Mhm.
I'm gonna say very loosely based. And then you had they came out with Doom with Dwayne the Rock Johnson, right? Doom, the
It
movie
did.
Doom.
Oof.
You know, I've never seen a movie or a show that's live action. I'm not going to bring The Witcher because I haven't seen The Witcher fully all the way through, and I haven't played The Witcher game, so I can't speak to that. But the ones that I've seen have never been good to the extent that they really live up to the game itself.
So I still think there's no reason that a game cannot be successfully adapted into a live action movie. I think that most of the problem stems from Hollywood wanting to cash in on a name and name recognitions. They get the rights to make a movie of it, and that's what they do. They aren't particularly familiar with it themselves. They don't actually care about it. It's like, hey, we can tell a cool zombie story and I can put my wife in it, and won't that be fun? And like it's very little, it's not from the ground up by the team. That's like Cyberpunk. This is by people involved in the game, that or cared about writing it, and they picked the team to do this, and it mattered to that it matched with the world. These are all just often throwaways, and I think some things slip through the cracks. Like the Silent Hill movie is quite fun. The first Tomb Raider movie is quite fun. The Uncharted movie, despite my complaints, is well managed in a lot of ways. So but a lot of the issues I think comes from, again, trying to cash in, not knowing what they're doing, not knowing what they're talking about, or caring about the property, and then trying to, if they do, they're trying to retell a story that when they should just like add to the story, like fill in pieces of the puzzle, like I was saying.
I 100% agree. I actually watched the Uncharted movie on my way to Barcelona on the plane.
That's
Nice.
fun.
If you didn't call that movie Uncharted, I think it's actually not a really bad movie. Like I think Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg do a really good job, like kind of the dynamic between them on set. But 100% to your point, they wanted the name recognition, so they said we're going to throw Uncharted on this, and we're going to make millions. It's like that's not how this works, man.
Yep. Tony, if you have time, Andrea, you have some interesting kind of themes about the Cyberpunk Edgerunners. If not, Tony, I completely understand. Okay.
I got some time here. Let's stay with you.
I mean, yeah, I kind of was thinking, Tony, as you were saying, like, you're watching this and it was reminding you of other shows. I mean, I was watching through this and really thinking of like Gurren Lagann and kind of our main protagonist who is, adopted into like a family of outcasts and kind of adopted most especially by the leader, and then that leader dies, and then our protagonist feels beholden to like carry out their legacy and carry out their dreams for them and their dreams for the world. And it's just kind of this like really interesting overarching question that I think here in the world of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, our main character David gets told this a lot by Lucy. You're living someone else's, or you're chasing someone else's dream. And it just like really just made me think like, are we, when we lose people who have dreams for us, like, are we more beholden to, carrying those out, or like putting so much weight on those and that concept of legacy and living out that vision that others have for us? Or should we be really like, like thinking like, hey, I'm respectful of this and I appreciate, you, but you're not alive anymore. Like, I really need to be living for myself and for the people who are living around me. And I think that's where some of like the excellent tensions of the episodes come in, where David feels pulled between this sense of like, I'm living for the people who died for me, my mom and Maine, and but the crew that he's leading really needs him to be like actively thinking about the present and their lives a little bit more. And there's a lot of tension, I think, throughout the series that's done really well. So just like kind of these like
Yeah.
big like concepts that are just explored in a really unique way.
Yeah, I agree, and it's insightful. To me, it's like it speaks to the Bushido way of Japan. It calls into like honor and respecting your kind of your inheritance, your responsibilities, your like to think outside of and beyond yourself. So obviously this isn't a family situation, but as you say, an adopted family. And it's good to point out the similarity with Gurren Lagann, because that's absolutely true. And so we see how in this, how it that really ends up going awry. And to me, this can be a comment, whether it is or not. It can be a comment on you know, other cultures, but Japanese culture as well. And it's um yeah, I like this thought, and I liked how we see the again the respect in this,
Mhm.
and but then at the same time how disastrously it destroys everything else around. How it really, like you say, it pushes other people aside and the needs of the moment. Um, and it was definitely a frustration of the show. Like, David, what do you? Come on, stop! Do you not see? And you mentioned here too addiction, like because it goes along
Yeah,
with this. Then, like, do you not see what just happened to your adopted father? He did the
right.
same thing. You are falling down the same steps that he did, and why can you not recognize this and pull back? And it's. I think the two issues can be married together well, and it is done so here. Um, yeah, a great, it's a great point.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I especially I was getting so frustrated because, you know, it's almost like David, to me, David had two real lives that he wanted to live. One was this, what you were talking about, where he felt like he was obligated or by honor drawn to carry forth a life that was not his, but that was Maine's vision, and he felt like he needed to do that. But then it was fighting his own life that he wanted to belong and be loved by Lucy, and he had that, he kept ignoring it, and see,
Hmm.
there is that frustration that you get where you see him starting to fall apart, and you're like, dude, it like you can still come back from this, like you can
Yeah.
still take some of the chrome off, dechrome, man, like bring it back, and like just run away, just get away from it all. You've made it, you did it, you proved your point. You became something that your mom always wanted you to become something. You became something, you're successful, you did it. And to watch him just spiral it's sad, it's disheartening, and the story just keeps drawing you in because you think until the last minute before those credit roll that he could still be the
Turn it
person
around.
you as the viewer want him to be.
Mhm.
Yeah. And where does it, do you get the impression that Chase was ever, so, we've talked about with Maine and wanting to do what, follow in his footsteps and honor him there, also make something of himself like his mother. Did it ever to you fall into uh, more of a pride thing or a power thing at all, or a like taking control of my life? Those things ever become more of an excuse than a legit, because I feel like that would often be potentially the path. But did you
Mhm.
read that in the show at all? Do you feel that from David, where his own, it, you know, he did get too wrapped up into it, and his, thinking he's special, knowing
Mhm.
he's special and he can handle it.
I I don't think so, because I think that's too easy. I think that's too surface level for the show to be like, oh, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and
Mhm.
he it's like his motivation to continue doing it or to continue doing more, to me it never gave off the vibe that he was doing it because he wanted the power or he did it because it
Yeah.
was a pride, like it was he needed to do it. It wasn't he needed to do it because of him. It was like this,
Yeah.
like Andrea touched on, it's honor. It was this two lives that were in constant battle with each other, and he
Mhm.
didn't know how to walk that line or how to choose
Yeah.
or understand which one would actually lead him to the true life that he wanted to live. He's like, no, I have to do both of them, and it
Mhm.
doesn't work that way. And I think that was
Mhm.
a really really good way to approach this, because if they had been like, oh, it's just he wants the power, then he becomes a boring character.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there were certainly moments when like you said, John, like David believing he was special. They were they were self-focused, but they weren't about like I want power for power's sake. They weren't like advancing his own self-interest. Like even the moments that he believed he was special and could handle like this burden, they were still about handling it for other people, to like prove himself to other people, or to feel that he had made these other people proud. And unfortunately, like I said, I felt like they were directed very specifically at, his mom and Maine. And there was not, the tension came in between like, I'm doing this for these people who have died rather than like I'm doing this for the people who are living. Like David pushed himself to the point where he was like, I need to rely on myself and I need to live up to this legacy. And sometimes I just really can't see that taking a break from this and focusing on my crew members would be the better path here, you know,
Mhm.
and
it
not like soloing so much of this
Mhm.
burden.
it
Yeah, and that,
almost walks the line of martyrdom, almost.
Yeah, it does.
right.
It does.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a very weird martyrdom because it's
Mhm.
like he's not taking on that
Right.
mantle
The
of,
the
I'm
mentality of it, exactly.
yeah, I'm not doing this because of you. It's like he's still doing it to almost prove something to his crew, even though his crew doesn't want him to prove anything. Like they literally
No.
flat out do not care. They've said that to him. They tell him that he is the most important thing to them. But in his mind, like it's not good enough.
Yep.
Yeah, and the tragedy of Lucy, spending so much time and being secretive about it. So then obviously that creates a further rift between them. That what is she up to this whole time? But like spending this time, her goal is that they can be together and they can get out of there. And so I feel like she works towards that. but it's really in vain because it's never going to matter if she can't pull David back from the brink.
It's unfortunate that, this is kind of like two people modeling the worst sort of behavior, not the worst sort of behavior, but some bad behavior in this relationship, because they're both like Lucy's doing all of this stuff solo, and David doesn't really know what it is and doesn't even know that like most of this is for him. So she's off here being like, okay, well, I'm in this relationship, but also I have this huge part of my life that I'm shouldering responsibility and burden for solo. So it's almost like modeling for David that he should do the same with like the crew and the missions that they do. Like, yeah, like this is how you behave. Like this is how you're, you know, in a relationship. You just like shoulder this like solo burden instead of sharing it.
Yep.
It's
And then,
almost like a reverse toxic relationship. Like usually when you have
yeah,
a toxic relationship, you have two individuals that just hate each other, but for some reason are still in a relationship, and that you can just tell. But this is like they almost loved each other so much that they wanted to.
it was
It's really
destructive.
yeah. It's like
It was
they loved each other to being
destructive.
destructive to the relationship.
Right.
Um, and they didn't know how to pull out of it. And I think that's, they got so lost in the minutia of their own problems that instead of communicating with each other and understanding, what each other were doing, they just both spiraled out in different directions.
Right. And when they came back, it was too late.
It was too late.
And they did a really the overall story and the characters, I thought they did a really good job of balancing betrayal when you trust someone and when you don't. We go through the ups and downs of who you can count on and then who you can't. Of course, we have a team member, Kiwi, that betrays them. But it's
Right.
like, you get in too deep and you work with the wrong people, like Giancarlo Esposito. I don't work with him, right? I guess he's always a bad guy. Um, and yeah, it's so I also like that. Like this relationship was handled very well, and the betrayal or loyalty from different characters was all done in a realistic manner. I think it's something that often gets lost or is messed up in shows, but in anime too, as well, as motivation. What's someone's proper motivation? And I feel like it was always made sense. Rebecca always had a thing and wanted David's attention and never got it. So is that kind of sad thing for her, that she really gets drugged down in all of this as well. So some really good characters that I thought, rounded out the show well. It really wasn't just the David and Lucy show. There were other players that added to the bigger picture as well.
I think it was some solid voice acting too. Some really solid
Yeah.
voice acting.
Anyone watch it in Japanese?
I did for one.
Okay.
I watched both just out
Okay.
of curiosity.
Yeah, I thought about going back and watching in Japanese, but I really didn't have any complaints with the voice acting in English, so I guess I
didn't
didn't.
I
But
didn't either, which is unusual for me.
sure. Yeah.
It's always good. I enjoy voice acting. I think voice acting is a lot more difficult than people think, especially when you have a person who can do multiple different types of voices. And it's always fun when you hear people that you're like, oh, wait a minute, I know who. You have to like quickly look it up and be like, I knew it. Like one of them, it got me for one episode was figuring out that Matt Mercer played the driver.
Oh
He does
yeah.
the voice acting for that character. I'm a big Matt Mercer fan. I think I like him as
We
a
know.
voice actor.
We know.
I also, it's fun to hear, different voice actors, and you can pick them out very slightly every once in a while. So you can always pick them out a little bit, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, do we have any complaints?
Honestly, I don't. I really don't. Like normally, I like to try to be constructive in some way, but I think this is just a really good. My complaint is it didn't have more episodes.
Okay.
But I
All right,
think
easy
it's a
easy wish guy. I wish for 100 more wishes.
100 more wishes. I wish, or as James Acaster said, infinite genies, because it takes care of having more wishes and having friends.
Oh, nice. I haven't heard that one before.
It's a good one. But no, I think it was just a really good package story. It was complete. It was, complex, in depth. It had a very good beginning. The middle caught you on board, and the ending was just satisfying. Just a great story segment.
Andrea, complaints?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's immediately coming to mind. I mean, I'm sure there could be things that you could say, and I could be like, oh yeah, they could have improved, blah blah blah. But I think any of that would be nitpicky. I think, like Tony said, overarching comment is like great story, great acting. It was a richly detailed world that didn't get lost in its own minutia, and I think actually having fewer episodes made sure that we didn't wander too much and that our story was like nice, tight, like there wasn't it wasn't overly complex and too drug out. So, yeah, I mean, I could have used a few more episodes maybe to explore some side characters or like build some background, but on the whole, like they did well keeping it concise.
I will say, if you played the game before watching Cyberpunk, you knew how it was going to end.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I
I
held out hope. I held out hope for different things,
I
yeah.
did, but once, oh God, what is his face? The
Adam
big
Smasher.
when Adam Smasher got involved, I was like, okay, I know where this is gonna go.
Yeah, no, it's a great, and they put out a tweet for that. They're like, "Hey, you want some revenge against a certain some character? Make sure you pick up the game."
Yeah, which
Um,
is smart. Smart, like
very
interleaved
smart.
marketing.
You visit a lot of the same locations. I didn't do a lot of the Cyber Psycho stuff in playing the game, and if I had watched this first, I think I would pay a lot more attention to the Cyber Psycho issue in Night City.
Ooh,
So
I'm gonna get a jab in there, John. I think when we first played the game, the Cyber Psycho didn't really exist. Otherwise, was it there?
I don't think
Because
that's
every
true. I
time,
think it's there. There's just also it wasn't essential to the main story.
or was it one of those ones when
As
you
far as I
got
know.
there and the Cyber Psycho's like half in a wall, maybe like sticking his head out, you can't shoot him or kill him, and he's just
Yeah,
glitching
he
out
he
and
went really
freaking out.
psycho. Yeah, he's going crazy. I think my complaint is maybe it seems silly, but car physics. It's car physics. I didn't like the chase scenes a lot of the
Yeah.
time. I was like, because I am used to Studio Trigger's style, so it doesn't bother me anymore. I am totally on board, irregardless. Like this was too much. The cars, the way they would like tumble in a hurricane of them, or go over meridians and all this stuff,
Yes.
is just. I'm like, it didn't need to be this. It didn't need to be that, and still could be very
Sure.
exciting and very cool. Alan sharing some car physics craziness and a GIF here or whatever. But yeah, it's
Now that you bring it up,
yeah.
and I remember those scenes, I know exactly which one you were talking about, where he's like driving at like 80 miles an hour, and all of a sudden he's just like, oh, okay, and he like hits the median and grinds across it, and then
Yeah.
flips the car back over. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess
Yeah.
we're just doing this
There was
now.
no like augmentation to this car to facilitate this type of behavior and physics. So that took me out of the moment. Those
Sure.
couple scenes took me out of the moment. And particularly with his mother, this was kind of before this was going, but with his mother was involved in the car chase, and then when she dies, I'm like, hit the brakes, stop, but people do weird things in stressful situations, so I gave it a pass. But
I was gonna say
the
that was actually the most believable to me
yeah, okay, just
car
like
scene.
what is going on here, and like getting
Right.
involved in this. Yeah.
Well,
Right.
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I do sometimes notice that in movies and in animes, where they sometimes do this, where it's like, oh, the setting is 2077, or it's like the year
Mhm.
is 3200, and they have people in cars, like what you consider normal cars, and they get onto like what is their version of a freeway, and they're going like 200 miles an hour, and you're like, what did like the laws of physics change? Why are cars moving so fast? I mean, even 100 years from now, cars are still going to be going 70 miles an hour. Like that's not how this works.
Mhm. Yep.
So, and I noticed that in
Mhm.
this Cyberpunk where she like gets on the freeway, and for some reason they like the way they animated it, the car
Yeah.
was like hyper speed, plaid
Right.
down the freeway.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's often have take issue with how vehicles are animated in anime. It's not often the best. Like there's just a weight that's wrong, and it stands
Right.
out. But this is way over the top. Way over the top.
Yeah, it's so funny that I think we talk a lot about, the way that like anime can do, because it's a certain medium, they can break a lot of rules
Yeah.
and we're fine with it. We just sort of like roll with the punches, or like, accept that like certain physics of things just like happen. Uh, but it's really because I think there's so many like realistic car chase scenes in like action movies, we have a hard time like letting go of like the physics of a car.
Sure.
Like, we can let go of the physics of a human body and what they can do. Like, I'm just thinking about some of like the fight scenes in Castlevania, and
Oh
like
yeah.
just like the absolute limits of like the body in a fight, and it just sort of like washes over me. But there's something very weighty and material about a car that makes cars
Hmm.
particularly hard to like break rules with.
Well,
I
and
mean,
it's because like people, you just add powers or you add cybernetics. You add a thing to amplify and make it extreme, or they're in a video game and it's a fantasy
In
setting.
certain
So
cases,
yeah.
yeah, but sometimes, like, it's just the way that, like, a scene is shot, that, like, somebody's, like, running around a wall or, like, doing a flippy, and you're just
Mhm.
like, "That's not physics," and they're not, like, terribly special, but you're just like,
Right.
"Cool." Like,
Yep.
they'll just do it.
Mhm.
I think to your point, Andrea, there's definitely a suspension of disbelief when it comes to physics as it pertains to the human body in TV movies and anime and stuff versus physical objects. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
for example, did you ever watch Mission Impossible Fallout with Tom Cruise
I
and
think
Henry
so.
Cavill?
I've seen them
I
all. Oh
think
yeah.
so.
Mhm.
Yeah,
One
Yeah.
of the best ones.
the fight scene in the bathroom. Okay,
It's
Oh,
where
yeah,
they're
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
it's an amazing fight scene. That fight probably would have been over in about 3 seconds. Like
Well, yeah.
he takes a dude and puts his head through a porcelain sink. And I'm like, okay, well that's the end of the fight. Like
Mhm.
you're not gonna get up after having
Right.
your head blown through a porcelain sink. You're either gonna be dead or completely unconscious. And but the suspension of disbelief is, yeah, this dude, he's gonna get up, he's gonna keep fighting because he's got the honor to keep fighting. But it kind of, to your point, if a car flips over and then keeps driving, you're like, no,
Yeah.
that
Right.
it can't happen.
Right.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, there's something different about like that particular object that we all just like, it's like, I mean, they try so hard to push the limits, and it's almost like its own like riff on itself now in Fast and the Furious. Like, what can we do with these cars? Like, they can fly through the air, and they can like launch across a bridge, and like, drop out of an airplane and whatever. And like, just like, it's so ridiculous now that like it's a hilarious part of the movies themselves to just be like, what completely unbelievable thing can we make this car do? But like in the beginning, when they were more serious about it, like, people were like, "This is the worst part of the movie. Like, you
Right.
cannot tell me,
Yeah.
like, these cars can do these things." And it just, like, and it was even, like, things that, like, maybe are possible, I don't know, but you just look at them on screen and be like, "No. No, no."
As as a you guys both know, die hard, like I'm a car guy, right? You
Yeah,
could write a thesis on the Fast and the Furious movies and like what they have done to that franchise. I will go to the theater and watch I'm gonna go and watch the 10th one.
absolutely.
Like I'm gonna go and watch the 11th
I
one.
love
Like
that franchise.
that franchise is astonishingly hilariously good. And here's the thing, it's become so self-aware that in the last movie they had a character. It was Angel. It's not Angel. It was another character name. But one of the characters literally calls to attention that he never gets hurt. So, like, he's like having this existential crisis in the movie because he's not getting hurt, and he's going through
Right.
like all these insane things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
it's
I think
definitely
that movie franchise has really done like a smart thing in becoming like aware of itself and not taking itself so seriously and like almost making itself a parody, but not like totally. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Like it has
I
fun
would
at its own
say
expense now.
I would
I mean,
say
it's a
go keep going.
great self-awareness.
Oh yeah. And I think the turning point for it though, when it did that, I know this is off topic, John, but like the turning point for that was Fast and the Furious, probably 7 or 8 is when it was just
Yes.
like, now we're going just be like completely insane. What can we do that's more insane than we did last time?
Yes. I would say 7 in
7,
Dubai
definitely 7.
when we had cars like going between buildings. Like no. Like those
Almost to
huge
some
buildings in
extent,
Dubai.
Fast 5,
Yeah.
where they're dragging the
Yes.
vault through Rio de Janeiro.
Yes. Oh god, yeah. One of the
Ah,
best in my
so
opinion.
good, so good.
So I think that the creators over at Studio Trigger were just watching Fast 9, and they're like, if they can do it, so
We
can
can do
we.
it too.
Yeah. Mhm.
Lucy totally did it with the I'm gonna pull the gurney out of the ambulance and drive it on the freeway at 50 some miles per hour.
Yes.
See, that didn't bother me.
I forgot
Like,
about that.
like, yes, unrealistic,
about
but
that.
that didn't bother me. It's like
It-
it's rolling, it's on wheels, it's straight, like I'm fine.
She's not watching the traffic. She could dodge and
Yeah, she's
jump.
not doing any flips or anything like that, So, yeah.
Which, if you've ever tried to lift one of those gurneys, is very difficult to do. And she's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, jump, jump.
Cybernetics.
There you
Cybernetics.
go.
Mhm.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. All right. Well, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, anime on Netflix, and we all recommend it. Should all go and take a look at it. It was well done, and then afterwards, go play the game. So
Yes.
yeah,
It's good.
um,
Watch it, play it.
right. Tony, I know we kept you a little long. Thanks for sticking with it, and we appreciate you coming back. It's been a while. Hopefully, we can have you back again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
You bet. Anyways, that's Popcast on the Rocks, episode 128. Please like, share, subscribe in all the applicable places. We're on Twitch, where we live stream. The full thing and clips often go up on YouTube, on podcast directories of choice. If you use Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. That helps a lot. If you're on Spotify, you can also watch it in video format. Killing the Flower, there are theme song creators, so go ahead and check out their music on Spotify, Apple Music. They have an Instagram, YouTube, that sort of thing. We appreciate them very much. And otherwise, Andrea, you're always here. That's great. So thanks again for joining me. And we'll see everybody next time.
Sounds good. Cheers, everybody.